So, this story is about my father and his encounter with a flying being / humanoid in South Texas County of Hidalgo. He worked for the sheriff's department for a number of years. My father has investigated over 14 homicides. He has had his fair share of experience and has been around, as they say. Anyway, this is the story he would tell my family and I, told from my father's point of view. A late December night, while driving down the old military highway, after being called by citizens saying his chickens had been slaughtered more and more every day, I couldn't help but notice how dark La Alameda looked as I pulled closer and closer to the old asylum near where the man lived who called to make the report. As I arrived, I got down from my unit. The man tells me he has heard weird-sounding noises throughout the night as he wakes up to tools missing and his chickens being killed and eaten with nothing but their heads and feathers being left behind. Now, the man did mention that he does have wild dogs and boars walking around at all hours of the night. However, they can never get into his chicken coops and garage door, so he was assuming someone had been breaking in and taking his belongings and killing his chickens to eat / cook them. Now, this wouldn't be strange if the man had neighbors or homeless people living around, but this is out in the middle of nowhere. My father patrolled in the mid-90s. The military highway was nothing but orchards and woods, so it was strange that someone would go out of their way to come to this man's house and harass him. As I was writing his details and statements, I noticed that there is a weird window busted out in his chicken coop. I looked around and came to the conclusion that whoever got into the coop entered through the window first and then opened the coop from the inside. I thought this particular action was strange. What would have fit through that window? It was no more than 2 feet by 2 feet and 5 feet in height from the ground, so no way for them to climb up there easily either. No markings of any objects being placed for extra height. No signs of any other strange behavior, except for the 8 slaughtered chicken heads that were laying just outside the chicken coop while the other chickens were sleeping. Well, by the time I was done taking the report, it must have been around 11:30 p.m. at night. I tell the man to keep in touch and gave him my personal pager number if he had any other strange incidences, and promised I would look into it and patrol the area from now on. As I open the door to enter my unit, the man tells me there is one more thing. He has heard thumping on his roof as well every morning that he has woken up, around 4 a.m., for the same number of days that the chickens had been killed. I took this into consideration, since there are some large carnivorous beasts in South Texas that can tear a wire window open. I thought to myself, but how could the door have gotten open to the coop? Well, I shook it off and tried not to pay too much attention to it, since I was working on 3 other cases that were more important. I turned on my unit and turned on the radio, rolled down my window, and started to drive away, heading down the legendary military highway once again. It was pitch black dark, not a light post in sight. I love driving like that at night, so peaceful and relaxing. After a long night, midnight came. My shift was over. I was dreaming of sleep when all of a sudden I hear a large swoosh that startled me, right near my ear towards the open window of my unit. I was hitting 60 at least, so I didn't pay any attention to it. Probably just the wind, you know? As I get closer to La Alameda, I see something through the corner of my left eye. Something large floating near my unit. Something large floating near my unit as I'm hitting 60 miles an hour. I thought to myself, it must be some sort of reflection or tree lining that I'm driving near. Then again, I hear the swoosh, and in an instant that figure is gone. I tried my best not to look, since it was pitch black and I was driving quite fast. I didn't want to take my eyes off the road. The scary part? I didn't have to. As I slowed down, pulling up to the only stoplight within 2 miles, I see the figure again, flying ahead of my cruiser. Quickly, I thought to myself, what a huge owl. My first assumption. I was wrong, though. As I got to the red light, the being flies down quickly, about 40 yards in front of my unit, and stands on its 2 hind legs. It was a 4-legged creature. As it lands, it turns its back towards my unit, and quickly jumps up and down twice as if it was trying to get my attention. Not knowing what exactly it was, I hesitated to get down. I didn't even think about it. Whatever this thing was, it was so bizarre and strange looking. It looked about the size of a full-grown pelican, with a brownish dark wings and body, claws on its front legs. From what I could see, it had a dog-like snout. I didn't get to see any teeth. It flew away within 8 seconds as the light turned green. Being freaked out, I rolled up my window and lowered my radio. I tried to tell myself that it was just a bird. It was no bird. It was too large and heavy looking to be a bird. Plus, no beak and 4 legs. For years, I have heard of strange reports and sightings along Military Highway, ever since that one night. I've seen people wear rugs on their head to hide that bald spot. I've seen people shave their heads to cover up going bald. Women suck fat places and put in others. Some people have lips that a suckerfish would be jealous of. So why wouldn't the big fella follow suit? While investigating sightings of Bigfoot in Kentucky, our crew saw something that left us shaking our heads. As in a usual case, we rented our rooms at the local motel and set up our overnight cameras in the surrounding woods. We usually do very little the first night of the investigation. Instead, we leave our cameras to do the heavy lifting so we can get some idea to the movements of the area. Every wooded area has different animals to look for, different hunting trails, and locals that have very sensitive and particular spots they use to hide and hunt. So, we just let everything sink in as to know when something is out of place. Well, on this first night, it is our tradition for us to hit the local pubs. No, not just to get lit on the Boyd's coin. We actually dig for local stories. Many times, people are hesitant to talk to an outsider, thinking we might be there to poke fun at them. But put a few shots in someone's hand, and they open up pretty quickly. As the night progressed, we heard locals talking about how Bigfoot roamed around the woods at all hours, steal food from dumpsters, and are a general bother to the town. To be honest, the townspeople seem to think every town has their Bigfoot problems and are just annoying by the company. That is when the story took an odd twist. A group of men stumbled in, laughing and smiling. They looked like they had already spent most of the night in the bottle, all bald and wearing unkempt, uncoordinated clothing. I commented about the men's particular high spirits. That's when the locals said, those guys are trash. They sit outside all day long eating fermented apples, until they get buzzed enough to come in here. They never talk to us, just hang out pointing and grunting. Hell, I don't even know if this inbred knows how to speak. They don't work. Now, as a Boyd reporter, I know this is where the story is. Rednecks that spend most of their days in the woods, they had to know something. I took up my notepad and went to get the scoop. As I approached, I noticed a sloped forehead on the first guy. I thought the local hit the nail on the head. Inbreeding definitely took a toll on this family. Getting closer, I noticed all of them had the same forehead. A few had noticeable hair behind their ears and spotty patches of hair on their arms. One was wearing a dress even, had hair sticking out the back of his dress. I moved closer and closer. One smiled at me. Giant canines showed through brightly. I jumped back, hitting the floor. The group all grunted and ran from the building. The locals all stood up and saluted, taking a drink in unison and laughing. I looked around, wondering what happened. The townie I was talking to walked up. See there? It was right under your nose. Damn city folk. Don't even know when they're being screwed with. How many humans do you know sit around eating fermented apples? Ya dip. Those there guys were the Bigfoot's young'uns. They shave and try to come in here and get served. Everybody knows that. We left the bar and the town that night. I was operating a raid camera in Afghanistan at about 0200, doing routine sweeps of local COP. I noticed something on the IR that looked like a bear, but skinnier and smaller, that was pacing the wall. I had the RTO call over to alert them of a possible wild animal. When the quick reaction force went outside to confront the animal, they gave the word of a no sight or contact. In the camera, they were directly on top of whatever it was that was out there. It moved with them until they went back inside, and we watched it pace for another 2 hours before it left the AO. Still freaks me out. They were standing in the same place, and their lights were all around, yet only the IR could see it. Late the other night, around midnight, I was driving home through the back roads as usual. I approached a slow speed turn and felt an urge to slow myself more than usual, and as the headlights rounded the turn, a large, dark figure broke the wood line and strode across the road on all four legs. As it crossed the lights, I caught a prolonged look at the large, wolf-like creature with thick, coarse, black, patchy hair. It turned its head, and its large yellow eyes resembled the moon, which had been vibrant and bright all weekend. The shoulders stood approximately 4 to 5 feet tall. Its body was as long as the lane I was in, not including its head or tail. The encounter has left me physically and mentally shaken. I've never seen anything like it with my own eyes. I've spent a lot of time outdoors and in the woods. Wolves aren't native to our area. The closest zoo is a few hours away. No local wolf dog breeders. Hours have been spent ruling out anything logical or rational. So here I am on Reddit. Please lend me your knowledge, and many thanks in advance. So, this story isn't particularly good, but when I was camping with my family several years ago, my father and I were out, walking in the dark with a flashlight, when we heard a kind of chirping noise. It sounded a lot like a person, doing a shitty imitation of a bird call. We stopped and shined our flashlight around and then up into the trees. When the flashlight landed on something, maybe 3 feet tall, standing up, humanoid, crouching with its hands holding on to the branches. It was hairless and very pale-skinned, pretty much white. Its head was abnormally large, with 2 huge eyes and bat-like ears. We only saw it for a split second, because my dad jerked the flashlight away when he first saw it, and we tried to find it again, but it was gone. I asked my dad if he had seen that, and he had. We were both very perplexed by it. When I've told other people this story, they're skeptical. They said it could have been an owl or some other animal. But my dad and I are both fairly experienced outdoorsmen and sportsmen. And we've never seen anything that looked like that before or since. My family owns a small 100-acre farm between Princeton and Fredonia, Kentucky. I'm telling you the story told to me by my aunts, uncles, and cousins. It started with odd noises, whistles, and bad smells. Then something that can only be described as Bigfoot started making an appearance around my aunt and uncle's farm. He kept his distance from the house. He would stand a couple acres back near the barn. Then one night, while my aunt was alone at home, she heard something on the back porch. It was an enclosed back porch, but had no back door, only a door leading into the house. She went to the back of the house. When she went to peer outside, he, Bigfoot, was standing on the back porch. She said he was 7 feet tall, shoulders broader than the door, and he was hunched down peering in. She was so scared, she called my other aunt and uncle and had them run over. They called the police, and even they came and were looking around. Nothing was found, and Bigfoot never came near the farmhouse again. Another incident happened a little bit after this. My uncle and cousin went walking after dark in the back fields. They were looking for whatever frightened my aunt. They were in a small bunch of trees when my cousin felt something breathing down at him. They frantically started for their flashlights, which they had off. He said by the time he turned it on, the creatures had bailed. Another incident happened with my aunt. This is before the back porch incident. She was out walking through the forest and decided to lay down next to a tree and rest. After she woke from her nap, something had quietly left wild flowers beside her. I know there's more stories, and I'm forgetting them, but that's the most interesting ones I was told. These are all true and happened to my family in the mid-90s. No sightings have happened that I know of since then. I do believe he is still around. Sometimes we find animals and bones in the back fields, some with odd markings, not like a coyote would do. We don't have any big game that lives around here.
Thank you for watching. I always appreciate the support you show me, and I'm forever grateful for it. Hope everyone had a wonderful day. All my social media information is in the description box below. All the story, music, and image information is below as well. And don't forget, I'll see you.